4 o'clock, sir. We're live.
Okay. Call to order the regular Augusta-Richmond County Board of Assessors meeting for March the 8th, 2021, 4 p.m. Ms. Coleman, will you call roll, please? Can y'all hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yes,
You call roll, please.
yes. Mr. O'Neill,
Here.
Miss Burney,
Here.
Miss DeAntonac,
Here.
Mr. Mills,
Here.
Mr. Middleton,
Present.
Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott,
I'm looking at him.
okay, I see him. Mr. Simpkins
Yes, here.
and Mr. Lee, of course.
I'm here.
Yes,
Very good. We're called to order. We have the roll
all
call.
the present.
Everybody had a chance to look at the agenda? And if so, will somebody make a motion to approve?
I'll move. Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Any changes? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay. My nose itches. Yes, it's approved. So the agenda is approved. Regular meeting minutes from February the 8th. Did everybody get those?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We need a motion to approve them, or if there are any changes, to make the changes.
So move.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Approval of the call meeting minutes from February the 26th, 2021. Everybody read it? And if so, anybody want to move to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Committee reports. Specialized Assessment and Obsolescence Committee. They met after our last meeting and will let us know what they did.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to call a meeting with Ms. Burney and Mr. Middleton, but after talking to the Chief Roundtree, it seems that that's been put on hold for a while, so it wasn't necessary to bother them or have a meeting. So there's nothing else that we need to discuss out of the ordinary. And if there's any more discussion needed, Mr. Roundtree, I'm sure will fill in the gaps.
Yeah, I believe the only items that we did discuss at that last meeting that will be going before the board today were regarding a relationship at the Uptown VA with an apartment operator, and where we'll be discussing that in detail in staff recommendations.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Simpkins?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. How about the Personnel Review Committee? Any report?
Mr. Chair, we did not have a meeting, so there's nothing to report.
Okay. Staff recommendations. Ms. W. Where are you?
I'm
I
right
see.
next to you. Good afternoon. We do not have a lot on our board work this week. We do have a couple of accounts that hadn't filed returns. They filed returns and we did some valuation adjustments. There was a new account, some staff prepared, and mostly deletes. And the other thing that I did want to mention, let me just get to that page. Keller, if you wanted to go to that page, it's starts on page 9. or board
Nine.
members, if you want to. It's Gold Cross EMS. And so we did cancel or correct, not cancel, but correct the values for 17, 16, and 15 on 4 of those accounts. We were waiting on information from them. We did not receive any. We couldn't get anything from the accountant. We staff prepared those accounts. And then, of course, after they got their bill, they have a new accountant and they provided us with all the information that we needed. So we took away some inventory that we had put on the accounts just because we felt that there was some there, but we understand that they do not keep any inventory at those separate locations. So that's the reason for the decrease on those accounts. So I just thought I'd bring that to your attention. And
Okay.
other than that, that's, unless anybody has any questions.
I do. On page 1 of 12, there was a reinstatement of a homestead exemption.
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, it was because it was dropped in error. How often do we drop them in error? How does that happen?
Well, what happens is we get returned mail from the post office that says they're unable to forward it. And so we try to contact them by the phone numbers we have listed. And sometimes we just don't get anywhere until they get that actual bill. And then they tell us they're there the whole time. They've never moved. They've always stayed there. So we put that homestead exemption back.
Oh, okay. Very good. And back in timber sales, you had Nixon Trust. Looks like they sold some trees, the brown timber.
Yes, sir. We get a timber report, and that's where those values come from. So everything that you see on your timber sales comes from a report that I provide to us and to the tax commissioner's office.
Okay, I might be losing my mind. Hold on.
Should be
I
on
saw
12.
Come on, pages, work with me. Go across. Oh, that's not it.
Yeah, go to page 12. You should find it.
Right, 12 of 12.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
I saw Nixon on there earlier. Is it? Was it? Or am I just losing my mind? Don't answer that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, there was a mix-up on the original mail-out that Ms. Coleman corrected for us. Somehow it also got listed under the real estate and was one of the early pages under real estate, but that was not a real estate special exception. That was just a timber sale.
Okay, well, that explains it.
Thank you, Brian.
Very good. Anybody else have anything to offer? Okay. And where are we now? We are with. Are you through, Ms. Woozick?
I am all through.
Very good. Residential property, Nancy Greer.
Yes, sir. We only had one item to go before y'all today, and it was an error of fact for a Senate bill. And it's been corrected and the name has been changed.
Okay. Any questions, folks? Commercial property, Mr. Funk.
All right, I'm going to share my screen if Keldrick will allow me here. Just want to point out a couple small things and then I'll turn it back over. So we had a lot of settlement conferences over the past month. Which we are happy to report to the board, have all been agreed upon.
And we're happy to hear it.
Absolutely. These were just settlement conferences where we discussed with the taxpayer or representative, and we've came to all these agreements. It is included in your packet to approve today. But, I'm happy to report that it was successful. We had good justification for any changes we made. And the margin of changes was still under the normal 15% that we report for county budgeting purposes, which was impressive. We didn't really look at the percent adjustment. We just looked at what was fair based on new evidence that was presented in some of these cases. And many of them were no changes. So happy to share that with the board. And the last piece was, if I can find it here, hide it on my screen. There it is. So the last piece I wanted to show the board was the personal property filings so far. So to date, as of end of day Friday, we had 541 returns filed. That's boats, businesses, and aircrafts. I'm happy to report that the team is 93% complete with all of that. And I also wanted to point out on page 2, as some of the board members may have seen in this report, that leading that charge are our newest employees, Marvin Sims, Yvette, and Ashley. They are getting a lot of repetition in right now, a lot of practice, working and processing all of these returns with the assistance of the more senior appraisers in that division to assist them as they go along. So when we get the full load dump coming in April, they will be more well suited and better prepared to handle processing on their own independently with review afterwards. But we're very happy to report they're doing very well. They are getting looked over as they're being done or completed, and we're finding that they're doing very well so far. So happy to report that.
Very good.
That's all I have for you today, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Specialized assessment, Mr. Roundtree.
All right, we got 4 recommendations on the board work today, and I'll start with the one that's straightforward. 3229 Wrightsboro Road, which is a location of the Catholic Social Services thrift store owned by the Roman Catholic Diocese of Savannah. I believe they purchased this property at some point last year and did a lot of renovations and had it opened up by the end of the year. And this, here we go. This recommendation is to approve the exemption as an E3 at that location. Let's see, in the next one, which was not as easy. So the next property is located at all 3 of these, 7 Freedom Way, 1798 Maryland Avenue, and 1900 Maryland Avenue, are located on the campus of the Uptown VA on Wrightsboro Road. I pull up something here I can read off of. So these are 3 separate apartment communities within that campus, which house apartments that have been leased through 75-year enhanced use leases to develop and operate supportive housing for the homeless and at-risk veterans and their families. We did receive an application after tax bills were sent last year through the property owner's attorney, and they have applied for several exemptions: public property, public charity, but they've also asserted that that is a non-taxable usufruct. And I'll do a quick explanation of that. So, you know, the general property owner has a fee simple interest in their property. I own my house free and clear, other than the bank that has the note on it. I have a fee simple interest in that property. I can do what I want with it. A estate for years is another type of property ownership, which you typically see on these long-term leases. And a usufruct is a lesser interest in property that is also associated with a lease typically. The leases in place we did not have until I guess 2 or 3 months ago when we received them from the property owner. And that's really what you need to determine if a usufruct is in place at the property. And a common thread of a usufruct deal is that the landlord or the true property owner retains dominion and control of the property that they're leasing. In other words, the person leasing the property can't just do whatever they want. In this case, there were numerous restrictive provisions of the lease that led us to believe this is a usufruct relationship. The tenant is only allowed to use the property as supportive housing for homeless or at-risk veterans as a priority tenant. They are required to get advanced approval from the VA for any major capital improvements to the structure. They must operate in a way so as not to interfere with the VA. They have to maintain their building and grounds at a standard compatible with the surrounding campus. They have to submit an annual financial statement every year to the VA. And there is language in there that says they cannot assign or transfer their lease without pre-approval from the VA. And at the end of the lease, the property reverts to the VA without compensation to the tenant. All these things combined led us to believe and confirmed with our attorney that dominion and control has been retained by the VA, and that this particular structure is a usufruct and cannot be taxed. And I'll note that we first put these on the record for 2020. And the recommendation today is to acknowledge the relationship as a non-taxable usufruct, return these accounts, these parcels, back to their parent parcel under the ownership of the VA, starting with tax year 2020. I think that gets the gist of it out. Are there any questions about this recommendation?
Doesn't sound like it.
Okay.
So we need to vote on this?
Yes.
Okay.
And all staff recommendations, I suppose.
I'll just do them all at once. Okay. I'd like to thank Mr. Middleton and Ms. Burney and Ms. Diatnak on working on this, get it done. Okay. Is that everything from you, Mr. Roundtree?
That is all from me
Chief
today.
Roundtree?
That's all from me.
Very good. Well, we have all the staff recommendations. I'll accept a nomination or a motion that we accept them all.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept all staff recommendations.
Second.
Okay. And Mr. Middleton seconds it. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Very good. Well, we're just rolling through this thing. I guess it's time for Chief Roundtree's report.
All right. Keldrick, do I have a share screen here today?
Yes, you can share.
All right. All right. Keldrick, tell me I'm doing in the right page. You see the office status report?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. All right. So I guess today we'll start off with a couple of items that relate to open and helpful communication. You would have seen in your email from Ms. Coleman last week that our agendas are now available on the Board of Assessors website. You can access this through the county website as well, but they are all managed and housed on our Q Public departmental website. And there's a screenshot of that here. And so far we have the agendas up for every meeting we've had in 2021, and we'll continue to post those moving forward. So if you can't find your email, you can navigate to our website and you can find the agendas on that page. Let's see. All right, so the county has had a program for a while, I'll mention, called Microsoft Teams. It's one of the many platforms and applications within the Microsoft suite of Office products, and we've started using it with a little bit more effectiveness the last couple of weeks. It's a tool that will help us collaborate and meet and chat and create as a team all through this platform online, where we can share and communicate with each other. We can share files, and the county has actually begun by training our 2 departmental teams champions, Keldrick Hike and Jonathan Clark. So they will be working with staff and having a great setup for any projects or communication that they need to do over this platform. So hopefully that'll help us if we're out of the office for any COVID related reasons, or just internal, to manage and track all the work that we're doing together. Speaking of work that we're doing together, the field discovery as far as permits is complete, 100%. There might be a couple lingering reviews to clean up, but the principal work in the field for those permits has been completed. Residential reviewed over 5,500 properties, and commercial over 770, which is a good bit of work on the field. The full residential neighborhood reviews and commercial projects are ongoing. So they're still in the field reviewing various things for projects and market-based adjustments. The residential neighborhood site reviews have actually ticked up a lot since we finished our permit work. To date, they've field checked over 10,000 parcels in areas where we've targeted for full physical inspections and possible market adjustments. And in fact, since our last board meeting, they've reviewed over 4,300 properties in the field. For those residential neighborhood reviews this year, I'll note that we've identified about 333 neighborhoods for review. Last year, we began, if you can see the map on the right, we began in Zone 1, which is the northern edge of the county, Zone 2 over near Fort Gordon, and Zone 4 downtown and west up towards the Somerville Hill area. And there was a handful of properties and neighborhoods in those zones that the staff is still working on completing the analysis for this year. I'm sorry, in Zone 3 right now, right in the Somerville Hill area, and moving into Zone 5, which is below there along Gordon Highway around Bobby Jones and to the east of Fort Gordon. I anticipate this year we will finish those areas in 1, 2, and 4, hopefully most in Zone 3 and 5, and maybe move on down to Zone 6 if we can get through those neighborhoods. As far as numbers and counts, we're getting very close to the number of neighborhoods and parcels that we reviewed last year during the same revaluation process. So I do see that our process is improving and they're learning things every day. And we'll do the best we can to complete at least, if not more than what we did last year. Brian already mentioned our personal property returns, and we continue to hear good things coming from over there. And we're tracking this information on a daily basis to make sure that they're staying up to date on all of those returns that are coming in. Appeals, Brian mentioned regarding commercial, but specifically the whole team. We're done with the appeals on our end. We are continuing Board of Equalization hearings this week. Final hearing officer hearings next week in both real estate and in personal property. The Board of Equalization, I think, met today with the majority of the remaining appeals that were in commercial and continued 2 or 3 of those appeals to a later date. Personal property again this week and next week with BOE hearings and hearing officer hearings. So we hope that by the time we get to the mailing of notices, we'll be done with the 2020 appeals. Quick update on our cell tower audit. I think I reported to the board last month that we were 99% complete with site inspection and field work. Rather, the cell tower solutions team was complete. And I'd say they're 99.99 now. They have one or two sites remaining that they still need to get out and check if, the cell tower sites that were more difficult to access. And Brian did report to me that they are moving along quickly with the valuation process, which is the more difficult portion of this project. And we still estimate a completion of those valuations around April or May of this year so that we can implement those values for the 2021 digest. All right, Pictometry update. So Pictometry thankfully has had several clear blue sky days last week and then a few the week before. And so our high resolution imagery as of last Monday, I haven't gotten the update today, was 97% complete. So I would assume that they are done with the primary flights. May have to return to catch some gaps if there was any interference in the imagery. And we should be getting early access to the imagery fairly soon once they do those coverage gap flights. All right, IS World Camera Conversion. This has really been consuming a lot of folks' time since we last met. I guess right after the last board meeting, we began division introductions 3 or 4 days a week with the staff at Tyler, and really learned a lot. I guess a good surface overview of everything where we could kind of see everything that was done on their end to date. And now is when we really begin to identify any gaps or issues with the system that we would need to address over the next several months. Our next update with them is on Monday of next week, although we do have continuous meetings with them every week on specific subjects. This week we'll be meeting with Tyler and various teams in the city to discuss the address database and the connection to our planning and development department so that we can ensure all the tools we have in place are still working moving forward. We're also taking a deep dive into all of our reporting and what they call our mission critical reports so that we can ensure that the reporting that we have currently meets our needs when we go to live production with Tyler. I'll also note that in discussion with the tax commissioner project manager, there was a portion of the contract that included a public website, and both of our teams have determined we did not want to move forward with that portion of the project. So we're in discussions on what to do with that. I guess that change in the contract with our sales team at Tyler and with the tax commissioner. All right, so we had a big deadline for caveat last Friday, and just a couple hours before the deadline, they let everyone know they were extending it another couple weeks or so. March 19th is the new deadline. So if you had not finished, I'm sure Mr. Simpkins did. I saw him working diligently in here last week to finish his. But if anyone else has not yet finished and they need any help wrapping those online credits up, we are here to help in any way we can. And I'll also note that I was in a meeting with Department of Revenue and other chief appraisers to discuss the 2021 education that's upcoming. And it is highly unlikely that you will see a similar caveat format like you did this year with all those.
The Lord for
that. And I'm not sure, what kind of delivery method it will be, but they did insist that it would not be anywhere like what we just went through. We've got we've got a GAP group annual business meeting this week that I believe Jonathan Clark will be attending virtually for the office. And this might very well be the last GAP group annual business meeting we attend, since we will be transitioning to Tyler's IS Word and not be using WinGap by the end of the year. So we'll provide any updates that seem pertinent after that meeting to you next month. Let's see. Oh, and Brian did inform me that the Department of Revenue has selected Augusta for a Course 3 personal property course, June 7th through the 11th. That will be an in-person course training done by the Department of Revenue. So we're excited to see that they are back scheduling courses, and hopefully we'll still be able to hold that come June. Let's see. And hey, that's the end of my show today. I don't have anything else to share with you unless there's any questions from the board.
Chief, I have one question.
Yes.
The pictometry pictures that we're getting, is that coming via a drone or is that coming off a satellite?
It's actually a plane. There is I believe a Cessna was the last time I checked, was a style of plane they used, and they have a camera system strapped to the bottom of it that's, I think, more expensive than the plane. And they fly back and forth and capture every square inch of the county on just using that plane. They have a fleet of planes that's all over the country doing the same every day. They do use drones at times for specific pinpoint imagery. Say if there was a disaster and a particular area was more impacted than others, but I believe they found that the flight time of those drones is not nearly as good as what they can get on a plane.
That's all I have, sir.
Sure.
The Roundtree.
Yes.
Question regarding classification of a neighborhood. How do we determine what is and what's not a neighborhood?
So we have a term neighborhood and subdivision. So subdivision, I'll start there, would be more of a specific geographically bound platted subdivision. For example, Conifer off of Wheeler Road, or Pepper Ridge. Both of those would be specifically subdivisions. A neighborhood can be a larger area consisting of several subdivisions. And in our language, we try to group, if we're grouping several subdivisions in together as a neighborhood, more similar and homogeneous subdivisions that could be considered a larger neighborhood. So that, neighborhood, just a more broad description of an area of homes. So not necessarily just one street or one subdivision, but more a geographically and markedly similar group of areas.
Okay.
Appraiser opinion at times too, right? These things belong together. Yeah.
Any other questions? Very well. Thank you, Mr. Roundtree.
You're welcome.
Did we vote on this? Staff recommendations? And then the report. Yep. Any other matters? Awful quiet. Time for you to talk. Everybody's home alone, hiding from the virus. Time to visit.
Well, Mr.
Right.
Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to maybe just ask one thing that we did discuss when we had, after the last meeting, when we had our specialized assessment meeting, that did not come up today, and that was the neighborhood over there by the National.
Yes.
We had talked about trying to help those folks with their values, given what was happening in that neighborhood.
Yes, ma'am.
It came back up to my mind because I was in Atlanta on a family emergency last weekend, and looking at a news report, there's a similar situation going on there in Atlanta as well. And they seem to be trying to do the same thing that we're trying to do, which is make sure that individuals who have had their property for a very long time are not adversely affected by super high taxes on things that they could not anticipate. And we're trying to do that for our community, which I think is good. And the letter, we did review a letter that we agreed would be put on hold until it became necessary, and we would re-review it at that time. Is that not correct?
Yes, ma'am, and thank you for the work y'all did. It's it was in the newspaper Chronicle that, we'd done that. And that we understand that when those properties are being purchased at very high amounts above the market, that it should not affect those presently keeping their homes in that area. And we did this before on the other side of the National in the Berkman Road area. And hopefully we'll do it again. And thank you for getting the letter out. And when it comes time, we'll send it to where it needs to go. So,
Thank
Mr.
you. I just
Middleton,
found it interesting that Atlanta has a similar issue and they're handling it in a similar way.
yeah, it's a lot of it's just the go-to play you do when things like that happen. And thank you to the Special Assessment Committee, Mr. Middleton, and Ms. Burney and Ms. Diatnak, and Chief. That was a good meeting. Anything else? No other matters? Mr. Mills.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that the meeting is adjourned.
It's been a motion to adjourn. There's a second. No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.